Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to be here. So today we have a super exciting panel that I will introduce. We have John Hansen, who is here. We have Mohan, and we have Deborah Simpier. We'll come right up. So as they come up, I'll quickly introduce myself. I'm Michael Mazur. I'm the COO of Kolu and one of the contributors to the Urban Change Protocol. A lot of my experience actually starts with electric vehicle charging, energies, utilities, and how to ultimately combine local governments and their assets with infrastructure that can, in the long run, help create a more sustainable future, reducing carbon emissions and so forth. One of the things that I've constantly been fascinated about is incentives and how do we get people to take different actions to reduce their carbon footprint and to create more resilience in our communities. And so I'm super excited to talk a little bit more about the energy side, the sustainability side, and with everything going on in the world and all these different blackouts and energy shortages and so forth, and all this different funding coming in from the federal government here in the US, the infrastructure bill, ARPA, the Inflation Reduction Act, all these things are going to be creating this crazy future with so many new innovations, but it all starts with all of us and us taking action, working with the government. So I'll start with having our panelists introduce themselves. We can start left to right, and then we'll take it from there. So go ahead.
Am I audible? No? Yeah. Okay. First thing, I traveled all the way from India, Bangalore, India, to be with you here and share my experience and thoughts. So my background is I'm an engineer. I spent early days at Motorola. I hope people still remember Motorola, the greatest engineering company that has ever been on this planet. Sad that it blew up, but after that I went into networking, spent about 20 years between Cisco and Juniper. I'm one of those unique specimens who has worked at both Cisco and Juniper 2 times each. So, and then in 2017, I had been too long in telecom and networking. I was looking for other opportunities. Blockchain looked very promising, and I became a consultant to a startup that was implementing blockchain for supply chain management. And that was great learning experience. I learned the technology. At the same time, when we got the solution ready, we found it's almost impossible to commercialize it because all the players in the supply chain, they will not all of them agree to be on the on that platform. And so it kind of became very hard, and the solution had to be diluted to the extent it lost its primary purpose. And then I started looking at, okay, what are some of the other applications, very new applications, where you will not have the problem of dealing with legacy, and you can get started with something completely afresh. And we started with EV charging, and EV charging is complex. The charger belongs to one party, so several of us drive up to that to charge. Okay, the energy may come from somewhere else. In some places, you have the choice of buying green energy or dirty energy, right? Now, and then the real estate there belongs to someone else, right? And so disputes can happen about billing, about how much energy was actually supplied, and so on. And of course, the number of transactions are increasing, right? And so there had to be an automated way of making it kind of trustworthy, and so that disputes don't happen. Now, before I hand over, just mention there is actually India is in the habit of creating complexities out of nothing, right? So I don't know how many of you know India. So we we started looking at swappable batteries. You know, it has its own advantages. It reduces the initial cost of the electric vehicle and all that. But then people who supply these swappable batteries in swap stations, that's another very complex, more complex than charging itself, because the batteries come from multiple different companies. The swap stations are operated by different people, and they get into different vehicles manufactured by different OEMs, and so on. So it's a complete mess. Day one, you have disputes, right? And so we have been in the business of trying to make it as dispute-free as possible by introduction of the blockchain-like technology. So I'll stop here, and then maybe we'll continue later. Thank you.
Yeah, it's great to meet you, and thanks to everyone for having me here. I resonate a lot with what you were saying there. My name is Deborah. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Althea, and we do a software-defined networking and meter transactional stack for telecom networks. So a lot of the problems and frustrations that you were explaining really resonate to me. We do have, that burden of dealing with kind of legacy systems, but the problem space there of also coordinating microtransactions is where we are building, and we have kind of a full stack of telecom applications and tools for people to build networks in challenging areas, or to connect and have meter billing between things like a vehicle that would have the Althea routing protocol and the wallet and the microtransactional stack and the charging station and your phone and your telecom tower and all of that, right? So if we can, work through some of those legacy systems, build interoperability into that, then we can have kind of that peer-to-peer transactional platform that I think we're hoping all to do. So that's what we're working on.
And hi, my name is John Hansen. I'm Business Development Executive for PowerLedger for North America. And PowerLedger is a blockchain-enabled clean energy software development company. And I also resonate with all the things that both of you were saying. We deal with granular data as well, meters and tracking and tracing and transactions, et cetera, micro transactions as well. Our platform, essentially our goal is to decarbonize the global energy system. And we have a suite of different features or products on our platform. And those include everything from visibility layers that provide data on energy and emissions, and visibility for organizations, public, private, to be able to do decision-making on decarbonization strategies, and actually link up to other products that we have, such as TraceX, which is a renewable energy, an environmental commodities platform, and it can be applied in a number of different commodity spaces, such as renewable energy certificates, carbon credits, et cetera, so they could isolate their profile, their non-renewables, go over to that platform, and then offset that. Then we also have transactive marketplaces, and those marketplaces include peer-to-peer energy trading, also vehicle to X, because it is kind of the same thing. You got mobile storage or stationary storage, or stationary energy or mobile energy, and tracking all the transactions and tracing origin, time, location, all that kind of thing. So transactive energy marketplaces, as well as flexibility services, going up into the more complex distribution and transmission system as well, for creation of local energy markets and also the democratization of power.
Wonderful. Thank you all. Everyone has such amazing things that you all are doing. And we're here at the GBA conference, and blockchain is obviously at the forefront. So one question I have to you all is, in terms of blockchain technology and its progression over time, can you maybe give us some tangible use cases for the audience of ways that blockchain is enhancing these efforts to create more resiliency, whether it comes on the side of the consumer or on the side of the utility or the local government?
Okay.
You can go ahead, yeah.
All right. So let me share the Indian perspective first. There are already efforts platforms that are in production, for example, land records in India, they are moving to blockchain. I mean, that used to be, and that's a government initiative. Now, at the same time, I'm sure you have heard that the Indian government still hasn't made up its mind about crypto. Okay, and of course, fear of losing control is at the root of it. But from technology point of view, the blockchain technology adoption is happening. I mean, I just told you about land records. Next, a lot of these examinations, results, certificates, etc., are on blockchain platforms already. You have supply chain management I talked about. We did some work, not fully deployed, but yes, we are getting there. The government, especially the Federal Bank and several other banks, have a lot of these sandboxes in production to understand it better, to address all the fears that everybody has, including the government. So that's where we are. And and my personal view is that while all the systems that have been in place for decades, for them to move to blockchain will take time and will also be a lot of hard work. All new kinds of businesses, new initiatives, it will be a lot easier to move to adopt blockchain for those.
So I'd like to share two examples of where the municipalities have adopted the Althea blockchain technology, which is essentially a platform for meter transactions using stablecoins, and it's worked really well. So there's a rural community in North Carolina, very poor access to internet. The median income's around $20,000. So there's obviously not a lot of resources to build a network. So what they did is they were able to actually use their anchor institutions, the the community center, the library, and have those be broadcasting in part of an LTE and fixed wireless network that enable people to get access, and then they earn a bit of that revenue share. That also is a great way for them to partner with a local company that actually earns also a revenue share, a daily fee from the kind of routers themselves. The users themselves also use this in a really easy way. They're just loading their routers up in prepayment, which has also enabled a lot more people to be able to adopt the system. So it's really a community-led effort. They're using blockchain. They didn't have to change much of how they did things, and it solved that problem space. We see this again in a network where we're collaborating and building in Atlanta, where there's a large portion of low-income folks that don't have access to the internet. So a nonprofit and RC Corporation are coming in to build it using the Althea platform. So we're going to be able to give 10,000 households 50 megabits per second of free internet. Amazing. It's a prepaid system, so other folks can pay for additional capabilities and have access to the full, couple hundred megabits per second of that connection. And so that creates not only an immediate fix to the need, but also a sustainable model where many different people can participate in that. And then we can also opens up different investment. And so I think if we really have models that alleviate a lot of the pain points in coordination, and a lot of it is also stable coins as well, too, being able to act in composable dollars, essentially.
Very cool, learning lots of great stuff. Thanks. So we do have some couple of white papers that we've recently done with Guidehouse. I have some hard copies here, but also there's QR codes as well to download them. But they show some examples of how local energy markets can also benefit distribution utilities. Excuse me. And there are a lot of use cases. Picking specific ones is always very, very hard. But I'll kind of go, there's on a commercial level, which also has societal impacts, which is one of the great things about blockchain, is that even if you're trying to do something that is perhaps commercial, you're still going to, hopefully be providing benefit to communities. But in India, for example, we're working in the state of Uttar Pradesh, and we are enabling peer-to-peer energy trading. Love to speak with you a little more about that later. And we've got some peer-to-peer networks that are both prosumers, consumers, and then also commercial and residential as well that are trading energy, and that is actually being scaled up. We worked very diligently with the government there to be able to enable this, and the result of our work there also enabled changes in the policy as well. So now it's going to be expanding throughout the state of Uttar Pradesh and enabling the requirement, I think, for the utilities to allow for peer-to-peer trading. Another example would be in, say, Thailand, for example. And again, we have examples all around the world, but we're doing peer-to-peer energy trading and also environmental commodity trading in both, Chiang Mai, with a university there that incorporates everything from energy storage, solar, vehicles, so V2X, a number of other different applications, as well as visibility of energy profiles. But then also, sorry, I'm just seeing the slides up there, and I'm not even going to skip through them right now. I'm going to ignore the slides for right now, but thank you for putting them up. And then also being able to trade amongst peer groups and really help to stabilize the local grid, create more resiliency, because what you're doing is you're maximizing or optimizing the use of hyper-local assets to be able to reduce things like curtailment and congestion and other things, or even imports from transmission systems. You're just maximizing the use of the local resources.
Awesome, awesome. Very interesting responses. And so we have about 10 minutes left, so we'll try to get to as many questions as possible, because I know you all have such wonderful and a diverse array of insights. So my next question is about climate change. And, in California, for example, people are starting to get asked to not use electricity during the day or during peak hours. And it's definitely, our grids are being used almost to capacity. And so as we kind of look around and think about different ways to reduce that load, obviously the things that you've spoken about are part of them: energy storage, offsetting the grid, and so forth. But I'm from the world of incentives. So I'd love to get your perspective of how can we incentivize people to help reduce their not only environmental footprint, but also how they consume with the grid on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, so it's the biggest opportunity for all of us right now, if you look at it from that perspective. And again, in the Indian context, we don't have our own oil, right? So it's all imported, and that's now, at the same time, we are blessed with 300 plus days of tropical sunshine, 7,500 kilometers of tropical coastline, and so on. So renewable, we have plenty. And in last decade, there has been a lot of investment in renewable. I mean, and you know that 6 out of world's 10 most polluted cities are in India too, right? So we definitely need to move quickly to cleaner and cleaner solutions. So there is a lot of emphasis, and there is a lot to gain, and there are a lot of incentives as well, and to make sure that there is authenticity in claim of those incentives. You can't do that without blockchain.
So I want to share, obviously there's many ways to do this, but I want to share kind of one example. When I think about the way that we consume electricity, there are certainly manual actions that we do, like turning on the water or a light or something like that. But a lot of the way that we consume electricity is very passive, right? It's connected your washing machine, your refrigerator, and all of these things are connected to the internet. And all these things can be made to be dynamic and interact. And so I think a lot of what we're seeing now, there's an excellent organization called Block Power in New York City too, that's bringing in into low-income housing the sensors and connectivity elements. So it's a lot about what can we empower on the side of connectivity up the smart devices and the IoT, and perhaps putting the incentives on that layer. I know for us, we work with a lot of these MDUs, multiple dwelling units, where it makes a lot of sense for the landlord to come in and actually be part of this Althea system that we have. They can put in connectivity with fiber or wireless, They earn a portion of the revenue automatically. That's what it does. And then the biggest thing that they wanted to know is, hey, can I monitor the water? There's a lot of times where there's a lot of water waste, right? Or there's a leak or something that goes unnoticed. So there's actually already a lot of baked in incentives, but it's really about connecting them and tracking and metering and all of those pieces. So.
I know we're short on time too, so I'll try and be as quick as possible. But yeah, I'm going to take it to climate change. Wow, it's such a huge topic, and how do we decarbonize and incentivize? One of the biggest things is you can't manage what you can't measure. And so really a lot of it boils down to tracking and tracing and understanding what our impact, what our consumption and production, what we're producing and consuming. And that's a real critical thing. And that's why we do have that visibility layer, because that is fundamental. That's where you make decisions. And then going from there is then when you're turning data into, say, for example, marketplaces or incentives, right? You can, with one of the great things with, you can do it in other ways too, but with blockchain, with that granularity and that immutability and that traceability and all of that, you're able to actually, and the speed, you're able to incentivize transactions through price signals, you incentivize behavior through price signals, and also there's some other great things that you can do on a social level where you can actually donate energy or donate other resources, things as well, and be able to provide some incentives that way. One of the biggest key things is that you create faster, accelerated return on investment and higher return on investment of those who want assets, who own assets, energy storage or energy production, as well as you create access for those who maybe wouldn't have been able to financially access these assets, and they can then lower their cost of energy, help stabilize the grid, local distribution, and also earn profit from that as well. But there are a host of other things too.
Awesome. So I think we have time for maybe one last quick question, and we'll end it there. So there's this debate going on, at least in my world, about or between carbon credits and incentives. And by incentives, it could mean funding for different projects directly. What do you all think about that? Maybe in a sentence or two, meaning what's the relationship between the two, the carbon credit side or the incentive side? Do they go hand in hand, or is one superior to the other?
So I think they go hand in hand, and they will coexist. And in my personal opinion, they should, because there are different cases. There are places where incentives have to be given for adoption, and then there are places where, because of long history, it is going to be hard to transition quickly, and so they need some softer way to allow them to transition in a reasonable time frame, and for that carbon credit is a very good tool. So I think we need both.
Have maybe a little bit unique perspective on that in terms of the carbon sequesters, which are your farmers in the Midwest, who right now are facing a lot higher fertilizer costs and a non-viable ROI for producing crops in the Midwest. And this is a really poignant and very timely problem. And so, maybe what we should be actually looking at is how do we incentivize farmers, or how do we balance, food production with sequestering carbon, and some of these questions about forestation and things like that. And so perhaps there's also some conversation to be had there.
And I agree. I think you need all different types of instruments, I guess I'll say, in the broadest sense. And even within the two kind of categories that you noted, there are several other sort of subcategories of those, and they all have different tools, different levels depending on the actors that are involved, the scale, all different kinds of things. So yeah, both.
Wonderful. So with that, thank you all, and thank you to the panelists for sharing. Appreciate it.